Hey guys, this was going to be part of my 5200 S-Video mod video, but a lot of people have requested this, so I thought I'd make it something separate. And it's actually very simple. I'm just going to be showing you how to mount and properly drill into the plastic shell of these old systems. Keep in mind that for certain systems, the plastic is so brittle that you'll actually probably break the plastic by drilling into it at all. Systems like that are, well, at least the ones that I've experienced that are like that are every single Sega Master System I've ever had has plastic that's like that. Usually 4-switch Atari systems and whatnot. But all we're going to do is we're going to make a template. I just printed mine out. I got these from the Longhorn Engineers website, so a small thanks to him for creating these. All I'm going to do is cut one out, and I'm going to tape it in place. I was actually out of tape, so I just had to run and go get a refill from my tape dispenser. But after you get some regular old Scotch tape or whatever, just go ahead and put it on the template like this. And you want to be very careful. Be very careful and make sure that you get this as level as possible. Alright, yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to be using a regular drill, excuse me, and you're going to want to move up in bit size. Something I should have mentioned is you're going to need a drill. A nice drill will work good for this, as well as a nice set of drill bits. That'll be very useful. All I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a very small bit size and I'm going to put it in my drill. There we go. And I'm going to make sure I get the dead center of each of these holes. And why don't I actually zoom in a bit? That might be helpful. Notice how I start out slow and then get faster. That's something that you should do. You should be drilling these holes as slowly as possible. Now, I'm going to take my 1/4 bit size and I'm going to put that in my drill. And now I'm going to, again, line these up and very slowly there we go. Now we can take all that plastic and throw it away. While I'm at it, I will actually do the S-Video jack as well. So something of note is that the S-Video jack is 1/2 inch in diameter. I'm going to be using a 1/2 drill bit. These aren't very common though, so you may need to enlarge your hole with an X-Acto knife or something similar. There we go. You'll notice that it took me a while to actually drill that hole correctly. If you don't do it the way that I just did, you will break the plastic. I guarantee it. You gotta go very slow when drilling the S-Video jack hole. Alright, with that done, we're now going to take our panel mount RCA jacks and simply screw them in. It should be simple as threading the jack through the front side of the hole that you drilled, taking the nut, threading that back through first, taking the ground tab and threading that back through. Then you take the nut, and now that I think about it, I actually want to show you the inside of the system while I'm doing this. There we go. So, and actually, now that I think about it, I've had problems with nut going first. First should be the ground tab. Next should be the nut. And the last thing you thread through should be the actual nut. And I tighten it with my fingers first. Alright, with the RCA jack hand threaded through the hole that you drilled, you're going to want to take a pair of regular pliers and grip the outside end of the RCA jack. This will keep it from moving. You want to keep the solder cup facing upwards like this, so it's a much easier to solder to. And then what we're going to do, as I'm tightly gripping the RCA jack, is I'm going to take a size 8 wrench, and using the opposite end of the wrench, not the side with the teeth, but the side with the... I actually don't know what this side is called now that I think about it, but you're going to take the opposite end, and you're going to thread it through around the other side so it grabs the nut, and then you're going to twist it. And you're going to do that a couple times until it's really, really, really tight. Or I guess I should say, until the solder cup starts to rotate as well. As soon as that starts to rotate, it's as tight as you can get it. Next, I still want the ground tab to be facing up, so I'm going to grip the outside of the RCA jack a second time, and with any tool, basically I'm using a screwdriver, I'm just going to rotate that back around so it's facing up. Again, making it easier to solder to when I do solder to it. Next, we're going to do that for the other two jacks. And since I already showed the back side, I guess I'll show the front side. Alright, and that's about it for the RCA portion. S-Video is a little special. That's it for RCA mounting. S-Video is a bit different as well as a bit harder, so let's get into that. So guys, there are pretty much two different kinds of S-Video mini DIN connectors you'll find online. For this video, I'm going to use this jack just because I want to, and because I haven't used one of these guys in a while, and I like these more, and they look better, and whatnot, and blah blah blah. So, in order to properly install a S-Video connector inside of a system, you can do one of two things. There are PCBs that exist to adapt this pinout easily to a more solder-friendly format, I guess I would say. However, I don't want to pay for a bunch of PCBs just so I can use this type of S-Video socket. So, I'm going to show you how to use these without having to use a PCB that will fit behind the board. What you're going to want to do is take a pair of helping hands and you're going to want to actually take an actual S-Video cable itself, and you're going to want to stick the jack down on top of the cable. What this does is it prevents the cable from coming, it prevents the solder cups on the back of the socket from coming loose when soldering to them. If you try to solder to this without a S-Video cable keeping the jack solder cups firmly in place, you'll notice that they displace, and since you inevitably melt a bit of the plastic on the connector, these will move around a bit, just enough to the point where you will be unable to make a solid connection. So it's important that you have an S-Video cable holding these connectors in place. Now, you may be thinking, this is incredibly small, how the hell do I solder to that? That's exactly what I thought when I was brand new to soldering to these types of connectors, and it's pretty simple. Just like with most things, we'll flux it up, and then tin each of the solder cups. So I actually forgot which pin is which. The pins that are closer together, so in this case, the pins that are facing the closest towards the camera, so the closest towards you guys, are the actual video connection pins. Let's see, if I remember correctly, this is chroma and this is luma, and then the corresponding pins behind those are ground for the respective output. Anyways, we're just going to heat each of these up and add solder. Tin it like you would any other wire. I really don't like the fact that that solder just globbed on there, but that's not that big of a deal. Here we go. Alright, now with that done, we're going to take some wire and connect it to each part of the S-Video connector. Alright, so I have my wires cut and tinned. Now all you're gonna do is heat up each of these pins until they stick. And actually, this wire was fraying a bit, and that's awful. Fraying wire is a nightmare. Anyways, yeah, just go ahead and hold it there. Heat the pin up. The wire, if tinned, should stick to it pretty easily. And I'm aware that I'm melting the crap out of the backside of the connector. In fact, I will even zoom in a bit so you can see it a bit more. However, this is the backside of the connector. No one is going to see this, so I have no problem with the back of it melting. Alright, there we go. We have wires soldered to chroma and luma. Now, on my third wire, you'll notice that I stripped the insulation a little further than with the chroma and luma wires. I'm going to cheat and actually use the same wire for ground. There is a pretty good reason why they don't do this on the inside of the jack, and that is it's quite possible that feeding each pin the same ground, if there was ever a situation where there was backfired current and your TV or whatever you're soldering this to had to dump a payload pretty quickly, this would be a nightmare for it, and it would probably fry something. But the chances of what I just said happening are like a 1 in 100 billion, so I don't really care. I'm going to solder ground, a singular ground, to the connector. As long as you get each pin soldered there, it should be totally fine. And as long as nothing is jumping, the connector should work properly. So here we have the case for which we are mounting the S-Video jack into. And now you'll see why this is, why I pre-soldered wires to it. Because we have to feed these through the hole. And then, since this catches on the front and not the back, that's why you solder the wires onto the jack first. But you may be thinking, okay, that's great, I got the jack there, so now what? It's not going to stay there, there's nothing to hold it there. That's why we have to use some sort of adhesive. And what I'm going to use is just some general purpose epoxy. Alright, with the epoxy mixed up, we can now take our S-Video jack and install it. Permanently install it in the system. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking from an angle to see which way the S-Video jack is the straightest. And then what I'm going to do, and what you should do as well, is I'm going to put some tape over it so it doesn't move. There's actually some better ways to hold this, but tape is fine. And with that in place, I'm going to actually change the angles so you can see me applying the epoxy. Alright, so here is the inside of the system. Now, all we're gonna do is make sure our wires are out of the way, and then using our Q-tip or popsicle stick or whatever you're using, you're just gonna take the epoxy and basically just apply it all the way around the jack. And that's the reason why I don't like using Q-tips, because some of the cotton will inevitably get stuck on the connector. It doesn't affect the operation of the machine or the cosmetic look of the machine, but if I ever have to resolder that for some reason, those burning pieces of cotton are going to smell terrible and they're going to get in the way. So that's why I don't recommend using a Q-tip to apply the epoxy. Anyways, with the epoxy applied, that's all that we need is the amount that I applied. I'm going to simply wait for it to dry and then solder the rest of the things in place. So with the epoxy applied, all I'm going to do now is wait for it to dry, and that's it. I'm done mounting the RCA and S-Video jacks. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. If you like the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And subscribing is also a thing. It really helps me keep making these videos. And I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you learned something, and have a nice day.